Hey, welcome to Wellness Wednesday. It's the Gooch, and I'm sorry I'm having to be in my car. I was delayed at a meeting. We're with Pete Bombaci, who's coming up right now, so I apologize. I am not driving. You can see both of my hands. My wife is driving. Pete, sorry about this. How you doing, buddy?
Brother, I am good, but I know you are a man on the move, and now that we're able to get out of our homes, I'm not surprised to see you on the road again.
Well, we had a couple things that we needed to get done, but listen, I want to thank Pete Bombaci for being there for us at all times. And I know you sent me over something that was really exciting that we were going to have a chance to talk about. So we will talk about it. The only thing is, you're going to have to really fill in the blanks for me. Looking at it, I didn't completely understand it, but I know you're going to bring that in. But before we get there, of course, tonight is game
Same.
5 for the Montreal Canadiens, obviously now down 3-1. I want to ask you, as a true Toronto Maple Leaf fan, do you think they got any chance?
It's funny, I was talking to Jordan before this. I said, my comment was, hey, they could pull another one out tonight. I think the challenge is I don't think they can repeat with Tampa what they did to Toronto. So, hey, if they can drag us on for another game, it's another night of entertainment a couple nights from now. But hey, we're all fingers are crossed. Everybody's hoping, but I don't think we're going to see a repeat of the Leaf round.
Well, we have people come on, obviously, in the Mercedes studio and, the Kia studio. I'm actually in the Hyundai studio, so I'm really excited about being with you. So let's get started about, obviously, the topic tonight, Pete. You brought it up, and I love it.
Yeah, so here's what happened is today I sat in on a webinar over in the UK hosted by the Campaign to End Loneliness, which is what I would call the leading global campaign in regards to combating isolation and loneliness in the UK. And it started after a minister in the government was shot and was murdered. Or I guess actually that's what put them on the radar. They'd been around for a while, but she was passionate about combating loneliness and isolation for elderly people. Then they received some funding, and her support, unfortunately, her passing led to them really taking on a leadership role about 5-6 years ago, although they'd been around for 10, in really spreading the message. So today they held a webinar, as they do quite often, and they had a gentleman there from Oxford University by the name of Robin Dunbar. And Robin Dunbar introduced the concept of Dunbar's number back in I think it was the late 90s. And it really speaks to, friendships and how many friends we can all have. And I think it's a really important conversation. We've talked about for the last few weeks about the importance of staying connected to other people, but let's also make sure we keep things in context so that, we can look around and see people with 10,000, 100,000 followers on social media. But are they really friends? And do we really recognize the role that each person that we're connected to, both physically and through digital connections, do we understand the roles that they play? And do we understand just how easy or difficult it is for people to manage all those relationships?
Well, and I'm one of those guys that have a ton of people on my Facebook, and I actually ask that question now. How many people are true friends? And if you go down the numbers, of course, and looking at who you're close to, it's an easy process. I'll tell you what, we are going down a street right now, and there's a guy walking through the middle of the street. I'll tell you what, it's crazy out on the streets today. So I just want to say that when I look at all the friends I've and the friendships I built along the way, how many are true friends? How many people can you count on? And so when I was looking at that chart you put together, it was pretty fascinating. Acquaintance, true friends. Break that down for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. What his research shows is that when we think about close friends, the support clique, as he puts it there, he says on average, people have about 5. And he said 3 to 7 today in the conversation. But if you use 5 as a number, it's a good example or it's a good beachhead for us all to think about. We just did some research in our National Social Connection Survey in Canada that shows that between 1 and 4 friends is actually your levels of happiness don't particularly increase, and it doesn't combat loneliness. And part of that is because when you have a smaller number of contacts that you can go to in a time of crisis, sometimes those people will be busy, won't answer the phone, might have other things going on. So the real solutions start happening when you get to some numbers around 5 and 6, when you can actually start having options in your day. And also some people may be in different roles in life. And so you may have some older people, some younger people, some peers. And that flexibility and that variety in those friendships becomes really important to helping us build the resilience that keeps us all happier and healthier.
Well, I think what you say is obviously the diversity of friendship too. Certain people, you feel comfortable talking about a certain thing with one person, but you're not so, somebody that maybe understands finance. You could talk about how if you're not very strong, which, I'm not one of those guys that are very good with mathematics, or I'm more a hands-on guy. So I really get along with guys that talk sport. I'm not really good when it comes to talk about, the finances and more that.
I just lost you there at talking about finances. The
I'm
volume went
noticing
off there for a
that
second.
I think we're having a little bit of a technical issue right at this moment, so I apologize for that. I think if Peter can hear me, I'd really like to get into obviously going through the next stage. Obviously, I know for a fact that in my life, I have roughly 10 people that I know that I can count on to say, hey, listen, I need some help. But I know which friends can take the issues that I have. So some of them cannot, exactly what I just said. If it's a relationship that I'm having a problem with, I know who to talk to because they may be a little more sensitive. If it's about me playing hockey, that's another thing. Tell us about that next level of friendship.
Yeah, I think I'll say two things. When you talk about the five, that inner circle of close friends who will be there for you at the drop of a hat, I think it's also about recognizing, as he described today, if you have a very big family network and you have, lots of sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and cousins, and somebody in the family has made the effort to make sure that that you have what you need in order to stay socially connected. He commented that some of those people may not actually engage and invest in some of the other relationships, like neighbors, like friends, because they have the support network there with their with their family. So for each of us, there's roughly about 4 quadrants. There's family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, and classmates. And each one of us, and colleagues and classmates, depending on our age, of course. So really, it's about understanding that if you've got 5, finding the variety within. I'm seeing that. It's Gooch. You can. Okay, Jordan, you can. Sorry, guys, having some technical difficulties here. But
now I'm having a little bit of tough time hearing you, Peter. I apologize. So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, the Hyundai studio that I'm in is having a little bit of trouble. But listen, obviously, when we deal with the topics that we're talking about today, I didn't hear your last comment. So I want to ask you a question. Peter, what happens when you're in that crisis situation and you're needing somebody to talk to, and you go to that first person and they're not available? That may be emotionally, that may be through the time, or that may be they may be struggling with it something on their own. How do you deal with that? Do we take that as rejection? That's why we've said to have a couple more options in our life. But how do you deal with that when you feel, I come to you, Pete, hey, Pete, I need some help. And then, Pete, you say, hey, Gooch, I can't help you because I'm dealing with my own stuff. And then we move on to the next one. How does that make a person feel?
Yeah, I think there's a couple points that I'd make about that. Number one, it's having the variety of people, having the quantity of people, so that if one person's busy or one person's dealing with their own stuff at the time that you call, that you have other options. You mentioned that you have 10 people that you can go to, Gooch. I'm sure that amongst those 10 people, and I also know that you have people around the world, which is a real value as well, so that if you're struggling in the middle of the night, you're you're getting in your own head and you're not thinking clearly, that you can pick up the phone and call somebody in Australia and have a conversation, and they can put you back on the right step. Because, for a lot of us, it is just about getting out of our own head, having a conversation, and having other people reinforce how much value and what we do to help other people. Because oftentimes we say things to ourselves when we're inside our own heads that we would never say to ourselves. The other thing is, again, we've talked about this before on the stress continuum, is making sure that we don't wait till we're in the crisis. Keep working those relationships. In that number 5, when Robin Dunbar was speaking today, he said to keep people in that 5 zone. If you've got a really close friend, you need to be speaking to them on a weekly basis. So if you're really working on trying to build those healthy relationships, and it works both ways, if you make the effort to connect with somebody else, they make the effort to connect with you, that's how you build that mutually beneficial relationship where everybody wins, because you're not calling somebody up just when you're in a crisis. If you called up yesterday or the last 6 months every day and it was all good, and you call up and you're in a crisis today, or I won't call it a crisis, I'll just say something didn't go well. You broke your arm, you lost your job, you're struggling in your relationship, you got some financial pressures, then don't wait till it's the crisis. Keep those relationships hot, keep them alive, because by building those ongoing relationships, that's how we can avoid getting to the crisis point. And Carrie Goulet is long gone in the Hyundai sound booth. So I'll keep going on. Jordan, is he back?
Pete, I really apologize. I can't hear a word you're saying. I see that beautiful face, and I know, of course, you're explaining exquisitely, obviously, this chart that you'd had. So what I think we should do is, I'm going to continue on trying. We've got a few minutes here. I think what you've explained so far is so valid, because at the end of that chart, I saw 150, and I didn't get a chance to really dig in deep to that, because I think you and I have talked on this topic to some degree, the lower scale of that chart, always making sure that you have more than 2 or 3 or 4. That's really important. What, if you don't mind explaining to that chart again, when it gets to the upper platforms of 150, are those called, when you call them acquaintances, what does that mean versus an opportunity? Are those people that you think you may be able to rely on if you do run into trouble and there's none of those other close friends maybe available?
Yeah, it's a great question, Gooch. Jordan, if you'll throw up that chart for us, I can refer to it. So, and it's kind of small on my end, but if you look in there closely, you can see the 5 that we talk about, that support clique that are always there. You're speaking to them on a regular basis, maybe daily, maybe every other day. Then you move out to the 15 people, as Robin spoke about it today. It was really about, those are the 15 people that when anything tragic or important happens in your life, they're going to be the ones you're going to go to when you're gathering people, whether it's for a celebration of life or whether it's a celebration of any aspect of life as we go along this journey. Then you get to the 50, which is your close network, people that you might see on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. And I think he said the 150 are people that you would probably see at least once a year. And that brings that connection back. And some of those may be old relationships, could be high school, could be university, could be old jobs that you've had where you went through the ups and downs of a relationship with people. And you've got that longevity in that relationship, even though you may not be currently seeing them on a regular basis. We can all think of those times when we get reconnected with an old friend and all of a sudden you are back like you never left each other's side, and you're almost back as though you're 22 or 27 or 45, whatever that timeline was for that relationship, how quickly we can jump back in. And we shared something on our social pages last week. I think I did it on mine, not the Gen Well page, which just showed to build lifelong friendships, you need to spend 200 hours with somebody. And that really speaks to the fact that it becomes challenging after the age of 30 for many people to build new, healthy, close friends and relationships, because we don't get that quality of time like we did in our 20s, in our teens, when we spent time at school, in sporting activities, weekly events, different things that we went to. So really what the GenWell Project is trying to do, and Gooch, you've been such a supporter of everything we do and everything you're doing. It's really about spreading the message of the why. Why do we need to connect? Who do we need to connect with? And what is the benefit to each of us if we actually maintain those relationships ongoing? And the reality is it makes us all happier, healthier. It helps us live longer. And it even makes us successful, because when we build those relationships, whether it's about losing a job or whether it's about achieving some, goal or aspiration from a work perspective, when you have a network and a community of people around you, those are the people that will help you get further along in whatever that need or opportunity is for you. All right,
I did.
Yeah, okay.
I've been lucky; it's gone in and out. I want to ask you this question for what you've said, obviously with the acquaintance. Now the fact that we are under the pandemic and we're not even getting an opportunity to see those 7 people that are in our lives that we have an opportunity to talk to, maybe on a regular basis. Those type of people, for me, I'm at least once a week with those type friends who I know I can call, and it's not overwhelming them or versus overwhelming me. But one of the things that I've noticed now, going out of the house, I'm very selective, as I know you are. Tony and I are very careful with obviously protocol. How cool it's been just to even meet somebody that I hadn't seen. I was walking down at a grocery store the other day, and I saw one of my acquaintances that I haven't seen probably in a year, and we didn't come too close to each other. And it was kind of that, oh my gosh, what do we do? I was so elated to see that person. How are we going to deal with that? I'd love to hear it from you, Pete, because obviously your platform, the GenWell Project, is about connecting. But are we going to have anxiety doing this as we go further on with meeting those acquaintances, not the people that we've been surrounded around maybe for the last year or so, but now we have to leave the house and actually people we maybe haven't seen in 15 months?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Gooch, and obviously there's going to be a broad spectrum as to who blends well back into society and into human connection and who doesn't. I was at a birthday party last night on a back deck with a half a dozen guys, and almost every person who walked in the door, we started to think about shaking hands, and then it was like, oh, fist bump, no. What are we doing? I'm not even sure what we're doing. Are we hugging yet? No, I'm not sure. So I think it's going to be a slow progress for people to get comfortable with social situations, with people. And I think the important thing, again, as we educate people about the importance of human connection and types of human connection and who with and what's the benefit, that we all take our time and understand that, social media can have us all believing that we should have 500 friends tomorrow, and that if you're not seeing those 500 friends, that you're not successful, or you're not achieving, you're not meeting the gold standard. And I think it's really important for us to recognize if that number is five people, if that's the goal. One of the things we're working on is a campaign to drive people to get their 5, because if we all had those 5 people that we felt that close to, if we all had that support network in place before the next crisis comes, whether it's a personal one or whether it's the next lockdown, the reality is having those 5 people in place will help us all get through it in the best way possible.
Again, I was
You have
unable
no idea
to
what I said.
hear you. So here's what I'm going to do, because I know you're doing a great job, and it's kind of frustrating for me, of course, probably yourself too, just to kind of jump in and some of the things you've already said. I want to ask you one more question, and maybe it's best you kind of end this off with this question. Obviously, the Montreal Canadiens are going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we've got a lot of friends that obviously are going to be watching that tonight. I noticed it's not breaking news, but Alex Killorn will be in the lineup for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think what the Montreal Canadiens did last game we saw they made some changes, and those changes were really good. I want to ask you this question: as we now open our doors to the world again, and as we get more comfortable being able to go on the street and meet people, how important is it for us to go out the door and become more sociable, and obviously taking in consideration that we still need to have some social distancing. There will be times in our lives where we'll probably continue on needing masks, but from the general project concept of us being more proactive in getting strangers to become, they don't need to become friends, but let's not turn a blind eye to anybody anymore. Everybody's dealing with something, and that simple hello, just walking down the street, saying hi, how you doing, and taking a few minutes even to say how are you, and listening and hearing. How important do you think that's going to play a role for not only, I know you already do it, I already do it, but us teaching our friends, family members, and of course our young children to be more open, and being able to understand the differences we all have. Isolation has certainly opened our eyes to being able, we don't want to be lonely.
Yeah, Gooch, and I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I think this question's a really important one, and we just came back with our survey, as I was mentioning earlier. Not only do we need to educate people about the importance of human connection to their health, their happiness, and their longevity, but some of the research that just came back last week shows that speaking to strangers increases your likelihood of being happy by 3 times. So unfortunately, we as a society have been told not to talk to strangers for our entire lives. Well, let's get clear. Talking to strangers is something we should all be doing. Yes, there are circumstances when we're kids and what we should be encouraging our kids is not to talk to strangers when they're in, situations where they're not around an adult that they know and trust. But when they're on my street and I'm 100 yards from them and they see somebody walk by, I want my kid to say hello. I want all of us to say hello to people. And you don't need to come close to the person. You can say it from the other side of the street, a nod, a smile, a hello, all of these things. And the increase, the 3 times increase on your level of happiness increases your chance of being happy by 3 times, is doing it once a week. So you don't need to be doing it every time like you and I do when people walk by where they think we're crazy, but certainly making that attempt to actually say hello to people, make a wave, all those simple things. If we all understood how important it was for us, if I told you that the research shows that over 90% of the time when you talk to a stranger, that it ends up in a positive experience, and if I told you about the benefit to both you and to the other person, why wouldn't we all start talking to strangers? I think part of the issue is the fact we don't know the facts. We've been told so long not to talk to strangers, and something like social media, which Robert Wine has talked about here in a comment. At the end of the day, we look at social media and we think everybody's living a perfect human highlight real life. That's not reality. The reality is when you get face to face with somebody and you get a chance to say hello, how you doing, how's your day? Because a lot of times you're going to change somebody's day, week, or life. And that's what we all need to be thinking about when we think about the kindness that we can share with other people as we come out of this pandemic. Yeah, I love that, Sam. Sam's also one talking to people on a daily basis. I think Gooch is saying goodbye, everybody. It is great to be here every Wednesday night with Gooch. Thank you, Gooch, for the platform of Connected. Thank you for bringing the GenWell Project to your community. And together we will make the world a happier and healthier place. Hey, everybody, let's go get that TV on. Let's go Habs, and maybe we can get to a Game 6, maybe even a Game 7. So have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. See you next week.